Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Erica. I'm the Senior Director of Communications for ASTA, and we have a lot to go through. We're going to talk about the American Rescue Plan and all of the things that are important for travel advisors to know. And we have Zane Kirby, our President and CEO, and Evan Peck, our Executive Vice President of Advocacy. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. We will be taking questions, but we want to know who's asking those questions. So if you could please enable StreamYard on your Facebook, that would be great. You just go to streamyard.com/Facebook and click enable, and we'll put those instructions in the comment section as well. StreamYard.com/Facebook to enable us to be able to see who's asking those questions. This will be recorded, so shortly after we wrap up today live, you can find the recording right here on our Facebook page in the video section, and we'll also have it available on asta.org. So let's get started. Please welcome Zane Kirby.
Thank you, Erica, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone, whatever the case may be, wherever you are, and thank you for joining us. Before Evan gives you some important updates and developments on the American Rescue Plan, I thought I would share a few hot off the press findings from ASTA's back to normal barometer research. That's our consumer research. Although normal, as we know it, may still be a ways away, with vaccination rates climbing and the media narrative starting to turn positive, it feels a little, at least for the first time in a long time, that the wind is at our backs. So let's dig into a few of the findings from the 19th wave of ASTA's back to normal barometer. First, for those who may not know, we poll 1,000 consumers randomly every 2 weeks. By better understanding their hopes and fears, we can advocate for effective policy and also help position you for future growth and success. The good news is that more than ever, consumers think that back to normal is actually coming sooner than they previously thought. The drivers of this optimism: first, more and more people, even laggards and skeptics, are willing to take the vaccine. And the vaccine offers the relief and protection people are looking for a return to normalcy. A strong majority, 63%, say that once the vaccine is widely available, government restrictions need to be lifted. There's also a growing intolerance for government lockdowns. Last July, 60% agreed that draconian lockdowns were needed to control infection spikes. Today, there's less than 40% feel that lockdowns are an appropriate government reaction. There's also an interesting development as more and more people have the experience of moving from areas with light restrictions within the United States to areas with heavier restrictions, and that's having an effect on their decisions to travel as well. We're going to dig into that. And in the next wave, we're asking about which areas of the world and what types of experiences that consumers want professional advice on. So we'll be reporting to you on that as well. There's also a growing sentiment amongst consumers that we love, and it is this: when it comes to travel, dream globally and buy locally. Eric is going to share more details as appropriate. But maybe the most important headline from today is that the desire to travel is a major driver in the decision to get vaccinated. 44% of consumers or Americans are getting vaccinated so that they can travel. Erica only half joked that we need to set up vaccination stations outside of all of your places of business. Another headline: large majority, 67% agree that vaccinations will free them to travel. Now, this is data from our 19th consumer survey. In the 18th, from about a month ago, we asked consumers what they thought about government actions to address the pandemic. Now, we know that the CDC's recent pronouncements against travel are extremely damaging and do little to stop the virus's spread. We also know that those who have charged the CDC with public health, namely our elected officials, have done quite a bit for large, well-known travel-reliant businesses such as airlines and hotels, at least in terms of offering them forgivable loans and grants. But they have done far less for less visible sectors of the travel industry, such as ours. We know this, and we wanted to know if consumers noticed it and cared about it. So we asked, has government done enough to support small travel-reliant businesses? The answer is, thankfully, A majority of Americans see and feel this inequity and want it to be addressed. We're running these types of ads on our own social media outlets, but more importantly, we've just signed a partnership with Politico. Politico is a news source most widely read and respected by members of Congress and their legislative staff. That's why we're taking this unprecedented step of direct advertising in the place that legislators are most likely to look to get in their face a little. We are taking this new step in addition to our existing efforts, our grassroots campaigns, our outsourced lobbying firm, KDCR, and our direct efforts from Evan and the advocacy team here at headquarters. During the month of May, you may even see our political advertising on Apple News if you have an Apple phone. Our goal is to persuade lawmakers as they consider the parameters of the next COVID relief bill. As an aside, I was talking with Brett Tolman, TTC's chairman, last Friday about our initiative with Politico. He was almost as excited as I am, and unprompted and without solicitation, Brett offered an extremely generous 5-figure support for this effort. He said in his beautiful, entrancing South African accent, "I don't want anything in return." Thank you, Brett and TTC, for believing in the travel advisor community. And more broadly, thank all of you, all ASTA members. Your generosity with your membership dues, your PAC contributions, and your response to our grassroots asks, your support allows us to deal with the challenging task of breaking through with the right message at the right time. Without your support, we're literally dead in the water. You can have all the great ideas in the world, but without access, they don't count for much. The other night, Evan and I, along with Jen Dunyan, Al Hess, Brian Hollian, and Matt Cameron, had a 45-minute Zoom call with Senator Mike Lee of Utah. Al, Brian, Matt, and Jen, the senator's constituents, spoke eloquently and forcefully with Senator Lee about the impact that CDC restrictions were having on their business. He got it. He left the Zoom call. When he left the Zoom call, he likened the government restrictions to the third ring of hell, and he pledged to use his influence to push back. Now, Evan is going to outline the features of the American Rescue Plan. There is some good and there is some disappointing. Our legislative champions offered amendments to the bill that unfortunately ended up on the cutting room floor, along with many, many other amendments. But the fight continues, and with your help and support, we will get the support that we need from government until government restrictions around the world are lifted and more normal traveler patterns can emerge. We look forward to carrying on this work, and thank you very much again for your support. Evan, over to you.
Thank you, Zane, and thanks everybody for being on the call today. I know we probably have mostly members here, but for those who don't know about ASTA, we are the National Trade Association for travel agencies of all shapes, sizes, and business models. We have 14,000 member companies across the country, some big, most small. Our mission is to protect travel agency community at all levels of government, within the industry and before the traveling public. And obviously the first part of that mission has been extremely critical over the past year. It's always been important, but it's really gone from very important to almost life and death when it comes to our members' businesses over the past almost exactly 12 months. So if we can show the next slide too, we're gonna walk through at a pretty high level what's in the American Rescue Plan, also talk about what we've been working on for the past year or so. If you go back one, Michelle. Okay, sorry, go forward again. Had a very busy year last year, as I just said, and the pace has continued in the first part of this year. You know, we got back into the office, well, some of us, on January 4th, and resumed a full sprint on the government affairs side. And in addition to myself, we have Genevieve Strand, our advocacy director. We have Lou Altabelli, our advocacy coordinator, and Zane and the other senior staff. Everybody pitches in. This is a team effort. So it's been a very busy time for us, as you can imagine. Post-pandemic, last year we did over 150 congressional meetings, calls, and Zooms. We've done another 38 of those so far just this calendar year. Wherever possible, we try to bring in constituents of the legislator that we're talking to, as Zane referenced with Senator Lee. So far this year, we have launched 5 separate federal or state grassroots campaigns That's against 14 that we launched last year. And so far this year, we've had over 3,000 people send over 11,000 messages to their members of Congress or state legislators, which is a lot of activity for just, let's see, 2.5 months or so. So if you go back to the slide. What have we been asking for this year? In order of priority for us, we've been asking that Congress create a travel agency grant program for 2021 in the amount of a little over $9 billion. We're asking that travel agencies be included in the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program. This is a grant program created by Congress at the end of last year for the live event industry. We have not been physically closed down as a theater or Broadway has been. However, we've effectively been closed down for almost all of last year by government action. So we think we deserve to be in that program as well. We're also asking to extend the very popular Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, and also the Employee Retention Tax Credit. And that when you extend those programs, you target those benefits to the most revenue challenged businesses that are out there, like our own. And then last but not least, some of you focused on cruising are aware of this. A few weeks back, the Canadian government announced they were closing their ports to cruise ships until February of 2022, which has thrown into doubt the ability to pull off the entirety of the Alaska cruise season. Fixing this issue, it could be a diplomatic solution, it could be a regulatory solution, it could be a legislative solution, obviously is critical for our members, and that's something that we've been pushing for as well. If you want to advance. Sorry, we'll just skip over this one. Skip again, sorry. Again. Okay, this is what I want to stay focused on. So for this latest bill, it's important to keep in mind what the context is here. If you remember, several relief bills were passed last year, a big one in March with the CARES Act, and another big one at the end of the year in December, right before Christmas. Because the Senate was Republican controlled, you had a Republican Senate, you had a Democratic House. These bills were bipartisan. They had to be bipartisan because you had to get buy-in from all three parties. As we all know, what happened in the presidential election, and then the Democrats won control of the Senate. I think they were even surprised themselves that happened. That gave them, the Democrats, unified control of the process starting on January 20th. There was a lot of things that they had been pushing for last year on those other relief bills that didn't get through. State and local government funding, lots of, frankly, anti-poverty spending, which is, it is what it is. But all this to say that this current bill has much less money available for support for businesses. It's mostly focused on individual support, and it's mostly focused on state and local government support. So you can see the breakdown here of this 1.9 trillion, almost $2 trillion bill, what the component parts of it is. And again, stimulus checks, which many of you will get, hopefully you spend some on a future vacation, funding for state and local government, unemployment benefits, which we'll talk about, some for vaccination, and then a lot of education, and the other is where the business support falls in. So not as much opportunities to provide support for business. Another thing to keep in mind too is because of unified control, the Democrats elected to use a strictly partisan process to get this bill through. They did not have to negotiate with Republicans on anything. So that made it more challenging for advocates like us because exactly half of our potential champions we weren't able to work with, or they didn't have influence in the process. If you want to advance the slide. So what did get in? There's, as Zane said, there's some good stuff in here. In our view, it's not enough, and we're going to keep pushing. We'll talk about that later. But there is some stuff that folks should be aware of that made it into this bill. The Employee Retention Tax Credit, which was created by the CARES Act, made more generous in December, was supposed to expire at the end of June, extended through the end of calendar year 2021. This tax credit, refundable tax credit, has the effect of the government will give you $28,000 per employee in calendar year 2021 if you keep them on the payroll. Obviously, the more employees you have, the more lucrative this is going to be for you. This is something that we push for, something that our members with one or more W-2 employees are benefiting from. So we're happy about this. There's a little provision in here allowing larger employers, those with more than 500 employees, to get the full benefit of the ERTC if their business has been severely distressed, and that's 90% plus revenue loss. I hope nobody watching is going to be down 90% this year, but that's an important principle that we pushed for, that these benefits should be targeted to those whose revenue is down the most. The bill also extends the CARES Act unemployment programs. The CARES Act created several new unemployment benefits. There is an additional federal payment. At the time, it was $600 a week for those filing for unemployment. You get extra weeks, and most important for us, the unemployment system was broadened to include independent contractors. We have a number of independent contractor members. In fact, it's the fastest growing part of our membership. So we were happy about that. Those are all extended through the end of the year. Through September 6th, 2021, as is, except for the bonus payment, which again, in the CARES Act was $600 a week, and now it is $300 a week. But everything else, as is. Obviously, nobody wants to be on unemployment. We don't want our members to be on unemployment. But the fact of the matter is, it has provided support, especially for our IC members, to get them through this crisis. And we have agency owners as well who are sole proprietors that are able to take advantage of this. If you want to advance the slide. Another thing that the bill does is, now the CARES Act dramatically expanded the existing SBA EIDL program, Emergency Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. It also created a grant part of that. If you applied for an EIDL, you were eligible for a $10,000 grant that did not have to be repaid. Shortly after the CARES Act passed, the SBA was overwhelmed and capped this advanced grant, $10,000 grant, at $1,000 per employee. This bill sets aside $15 billion to make applicants whole for that $10,000. It's kind of a complicated formula for who gets priority for this being made whole. Folks in low-income communities, folks with whose revenue is down severely, and we expect SBA in the next few weeks to make announcements as to how they're going to do this. So this is not a lot of money, obviously, but if you were expecting $10,000 in April and you only got $1,000 or $2,000, there's going to be a path for you to get that full grant funded. Last but not least, in this bill, as I showed in one of the other slides, this bill provides a tremendous amount of money for state and local governments, some of whom need it, some of whom need it less. It is what it is. However, they put restrictions on what states and localities can spend this money on. And there's 5 or 6 allowable uses. And one of the allowable uses is funding for aid to, I'm quoting here, impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. How this is going to work in practice, we believe, after the CARES Act, which provided about $150 billion for state and localities. A lot of states, especially, created small business grant programs. California, Massachusetts, New York City had one, Virginia, etc. A number of states have created grant programs like this. A number of our members have gotten grants through these programs. We think those programs are going to be renewed, refunded, and extended. So we'll give you another opportunity for folks to get relief. You want to advance the slide? So this is kind of green shoots and the path forward. So what I talked about before was what's in the bill. Again, we expended every effort we could to get all of our priorities in the bill. They did not all get in there. However, there were some sort of positive signs in terms of what we were asking for. First of all, there's bipartisan, demonstrated on the record support for including travel agencies in the shuttered venue or live events grant program. These are generous grants, up to $10 million. There's a very workable employee cap. It's very simple calculation. You take the difference between your 2019 revenue and your 2020 revenue, and that's your grant. We want to be included in this. Congressman Amodei and Charlie Crist in the House and Senator Lisa Murkowski in the Senate offered amendments to do just this. They did not get accepted, unfortunately. There was 1,100 total amendments offered in both the House and Senate, and very few got through. And again, this was a partisan process, so they weren't taking basically any Republican amendments. Anyway, positive sign there. We're also working with Senator Hickenlooper, who's a brand new senator from Colorado, on a proposal to set aside some of the money that's going to be remaining, we believe, in the PPP program to allow the hardest hit industries to apply for additional funds. What we're proposing, what he's proposing is the current program is 2.5 times your monthly payroll is your loan amount. We're proposing 5x monthly payroll loan amount for 50% revenue loss and 7.5x for 75 plus 2020 revenue loss. So we're going to be working with this office and trying to push that forward. If you want to advance the slide. I mentioned on the employee retention tax credit, there being a small step in the right direction in our view on giving extra benefits to those whose revenue, 2020 revenue, is down substantially. That's something that we've been pushing for. We wish it was more. We will be pushing for that a lot more, just like what we were talking about with the Senator Hickenlooper proposal. But that's a positive sign that it's starting to move in that direction. And then last but not least, the Alaska cruise issue. All three members of the Alaska congressional delegation have introduced legislation, and Senator Murkowski offered that legislation as an amendment in the Senate to fix this issue, to basically deem voyages, cruises from Washington to Alaska as foreign voyages for the purposes of the PVSA, the Passenger Vessel Service Act, thus fixing the issue as long as our CDC actually allows cruising, which is another thing that we've been pushing for as hard as possible over the past few months. If you want to advance the slide. So you can help. I know we have some members on here. We probably have some non-members on here as well. This is how I talk about how you can help our efforts. It's absolutely critical that we have a strong National Trade Association at this moment in time. I think that you will all agree. If you're a member, thank you so much. If you're not a member, please join our association. We need every travel advisor, every travel agency to be part of ASTA. After you do that, engage in our advocacy efforts. asta.org/advocacy. That's where our grassroots campaigns live. That's where updates live as to what's happening on the various bills and regulations that we're working on. And then last but not least, give. We have a separate fund called a Political Action Committee that we use to advance our policy priorities. This is restricted to members. If you're a member and you have given, thank you so much. If you're a member and you haven't given, please consider making a contribution to AstaPac at asta.org/donate. If you're a non-member, again, we really want you to join ASTA. It's absolutely critical that you do so. If for some reason you don't want to join, but you do want to make a contribution, we have what's called the ASTA Advocacy Fund. We're setting up a website for that where you can make a contribution as well. But again, the most important thing that you can do in all this is to join. One more slide. And this, in terms of keeping up to date on all these various things that we're working on, and this is just a small slice, I'm really focused on the most recent bill that passed through Congress. But as you can imagine, there's a number of things that we're working on at the state level, working on with CDC, working on with other travel industry stakeholders, things like creating a digital health passport, standardizing international entry restrictions, whether it's testing or vaccination, et cetera. So to keep up to date on all these various moving parts, we want you to subscribe to the Travel Advisor Daily. If you're a member, you will get this automatically. If you're not, you can pay a nominal fee and become a subscriber to Travel Advisor Daily or TAD. We also have a COVID member page where we put all sorts of guidance as to how to get access to these various relief programs. We started that in April. There's a tremendous amount of information on there, from FAQs to fact sheets to videos to calculators where you can figure out, for example, whether to take the ERTC or take the PPP or do both. So check that out, members only, of course. And then again, the advocacy main page is asta.org/advocacy. So that is it. I'm not sure if Zane has anything else, but we are happy to take your questions.
You're muted, Erica.
It wouldn't be alive if someone wasn't muted. It does not look like we have any questions that have come in, but just a few comments. Keep working hard. Congress needs to know more about the cruise industry, and people who are very grateful for all of our advocacy efforts. Yes, this recording will be available on asta.org, which will include the slides. We have a hello from our ASTA Central Atlantic chapter. One question that actually just came in from Patricia that I have here. And Eben, I think this is one for you to take.
Okay, the question is it still possible to get amendments passed after the bill is passed, or does getting some of these green shoots done require a whole new bill? Forgive my political ignorance. No problem. It's pretty complicated. It rarely works on Capitol Hill like Schoolhouse Rock, where there's a coherent process. Anyway, this particular bill is done. However, we believe there will be other opportunities. The PPP, as of today, is supposed to run out in March. That will create pressure on Congress to do more. There's a number of stakeholders within the travel industry, just us, and plenty of other industries like us that are dependent on in-person events that are still hurting, still going to need relief. I can't say there's going to be another $2 trillion bill over the summer. We may have to create our own opportunities, but that's what we're going to do. So the most straightforward way forward is to have these ideas introduced as a freestanding bill, and then we rally around it. We get other members of Congress to co-sponsor that, and then when a vehicle does start moving, then you try to attach that proposal as an amendment. And that was Jeremy. Thanks, Jeremy.
Jeremy.
I should say about Jeremy. I mentioned the calculator as to whether you should take the ERTC or the PPP. Jeremy Lawhorn, who asked the question from Fellowship Travel in Ashland, Virginia, created a calculator to make this determination for your business, and we put it on our COVID member page. So thank you, Jeremy.
Okay, it looks like we have another one. Let's see here. I think Jody, Jody's asking her fellow travel advisors for questions, but here's one from Becky. I'll go ahead and let you take that.
What if we are close to our PUA funds running out? Is there provisions for that? I believe that it's going to be extended as is through September. But I am not an expert on this, and encourage members who have a specific question to email us at government affairs. Michelle, if you want to put up there, govtaffairs@asta.org, and we will respond to each and every member question as we have done throughout the year.
So I think we already answered this one. We answered Patricia's question about the second PPP loan. We do have a question about the, let's see here, I'm going through sole proprietorship. We answered that one. So I think we've answered all of our questions. There's no more questions. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Zane back.
Yeah. Erica, I'm not sure if we answered Patricia's question.
Okay.
Which was, is there anything beyond the second PP loan that is sole proprietor that I should take advantage of? I think if you're a sole proprietor, you can do a PPP or you can do unemployment. You can't do both at the same time. However, like I said, the unemployment provisions are going to be extended into September. So you want to look at how much you're going to get out of PPP and maybe time that with your application for unemployment benefits, and hopefully be able to do both. So if you're a sole proprietor and your revenue remains way down, get that PPP, and then look at unemployment, see if that's something that you can do as well.
Great. Doesn't look like we have any other questions. Zane, Eben, any last closing words?
Zane, I had one more, and then I'll let you have the final word. So we're doing our legislative day again this year in May 18th and 19th. However, due to the intense interest that we faced from the membership in all things government affairs, we are effectively sold out based on the anticipated capacity at the hotel. This is an important part of our advocacy program in a given year in normal times. That's the reason why we're not highlighting that, because it is oversubscribed at the moment. But hopefully 2022 we'll be able to get back to normal and we can bring you guys to DC.
Erica, you're muted.
Any last words before we close out today?
Just an enormous thank you to everyone who's an ASTA member, who gives to our PAC, or who has responded to our grassroots efforts. Together we are strong. When we link arms, we're strong, and we've gotten some good things done so far. We don't plan to quit the fight. We know there has to be more pressure put on the CDC to define and communicate the safe return to travel, and to stop talking about travel like it's the reason that the virus is spreading. It's obviously not. We realize the work ahead is serious, and it affects our businesses of our members, and just know that we're on the job, and we look forward to continuing the fight. And again, just thank you for all of your support. It's what allows us to continue to dream and plan and plot and communicate and work on your behalf. It's a great honor to be part of the ASTA team. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Zane. And for anyone that has additional questions that were not answered today, here is the email address right here that you can email our government affairs team. Thank you so much. This recording will be available on asta.org, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.